Hello, welcome to Continental Prime, reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria's economic capital. The headlines for this are: Sudan's Prime Minister blames al-Bashir loyalists for coup attempt. Burundi investigates a series of deadly terrorist attacks over the past few days. South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma seeks removal of lead prosecutor in his arms deal trial. Details shortly. For viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is News Central's Continental Prime. I'm Sulaiman Aled. The news begins in East Africa, where Sudan says people linked to the ousted President Omar al-Bashir were behind Tuesday's failed coup attempt. The coup plotters had tried to take over a building housing the state media. In a televised address after the failed coup, Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok said the attempt was the latest manifestation of the national crisis. Joining me now for more on the failed coup in Sudan is retired Captain Aliyu Umar. Good to have you, Captain Aliyu Umar. First, it was Mali, then Guinea, now Sudan. The first two were successful. Today's attempt in the Horn of Africa was foiled. Are we gradually seeing the military wanting to make a comeback in governance around the continent?
Sule, it's quite interesting as we observe. You see coups springing up here and there. And in a democracy, we know coups are not acceptable. But then there is a psychosocial dimension to these coups, particularly in democratic Africa, as I would want to call it. The psychosocial dimension, I'm looking at it, is vis-a-vis the military itself and its democratically elected leaders. We must understand, hello?
Go ahead, I can hear you.
We must understand something here. A soldier basically is human. Being human doesn't exempt him from those psychosocial interactional dynamics that condition individual behavior and relationships. Now, having said that, you must also understand that soldiers are not manufactured in factories. They are humans who were drawn from the civil populace, and even while being soldiers, they also have relatives within the civil society. Now, how does this blend into the situation I'm looking at? To the average soldier mind out there, the way things are trending in Africa, the politician may seem to come across as a troublemaker, while the soldier is the troubleshooter. So it's like this. These politicians go about dropping pockets of trouble. And when these things go bust, we, the soldiers, are called out to risk life and everything to just put things back together. So as I said, psychosocially, a soldier also has children, he has family, he has wives, he wants to be there for them. So does the politician. So bottom line here is our societies, our democracies, particularly our politicians, must understand that a verbal declaration of loyalty or an oath taken by a soldier is not just a fair company. It's not just a fiat. He is also human. He's capable of logic. He's capable of philosophy. He's capable of reasoning.
Let me quickly comment here. Sorry again to butt in there. Let me quickly comment here. You've been a part of various peacekeeping missions across the country. What's your assessment of the security status especially in Sudan? And why do you think the coup attempt failed when Mali and Guinea were successful?
What I'm saying, or if I get you right, is the situation as you are seeing, if you do a trend or, as I said, a psychosocial analysis of our individual and behavioral self as humans, you're going to see a trend coming through. Call it, there used to be Arab Spring, call it Cool Spring now, if you like. But then if you look at the finer details and dynamics of this seeming trend that is taking place, whether in Sudan or wherever, you discover that going there, the justification will suddenly or even probably become irresponsible governance. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is if we want to stem these coups, it's about ensuring we get responsible governance from politicians. That's basically what any soldier will latch upon now and say, you know what, they're going to be the ones who, and these people seem to be doing their best to ensure we go bust. So there is going to be what I call an understanding between soldiers and politicians. Because, are you trying to say something?
No, quickly, I wanted to bring you back to Nigeria. Now you're talking about soldiers and politicians. Let's come back to Nigeria. And of course, security is a big issue in the country. And only just yesterday, President Muhammadu Buhari's spokesperson, Femi Adesina, did say that just when people thought that he was going to start naming some of those key names they had said were sponsors of terrorism, he made a backtrack by saying they're not ready to name and shame. What does that mean in the fight against terrorism in Nigeria?
The fight against terrorism is never and has never been about what is said. It's more about what is seen. And that brings it to the politician again. The soldier who is shedding blood, sweat, and tears, putting life on line there, is not interested in what you are saying, per se. He's interested in what you are seeing, what he is seeing. And when I say the soldier, I'm talking about the foot soldiers. The generals can assure the president that all is well and we're loyal, but there is no device, there is no machine here that can read the minds of the soldiers. But then, if light is faster than sound, as I know it, what we see impacts us quicker than what we hear, no less the soldier. So all the sayings, all the declarations, all the assurances, history has shown in past coups that people pledge loyalty this night, and by tomorrow morning they say, Mr. President, go back to your bedroom and stay there. But then what is seen will actually be what will support and even leverage the magnitude, the reckoning and majesty of leadership as opposed to what they say. No less to the soldiers too. What they see has impact on their levels of commitment, their levels of motivation, not what they hear. Not what they hear.
Let's close on this, and it has to do with a state in Nigeria, Sokoto State specifically, where the radio and internet has been cut off from people as a strategy to fighting the insurgents or terrorists in that particular state in Nigeria. What do you make of that particular strategy?
You were talking about the shutting down of communications, if I heard you correctly?
Absolutely.
In this age and day, I don't know what may have led to that decision, but it didn't come across as well thought out to me. As far back as World War I, we had what the security agencies or even the military could call a second line scale of communications. What am I trying to say here? I mean, why shut down communication if that is the major hub or playground or conduit through which the criminals operate? If I had my way, I'll just probably give the concerned state some serious communication attention and even sit within that network and see exactly how these things happen. Let me share an experience to you that may make us understand what I'm saying. Once upon a time, a very privileged child in this country had a motorbike accident in the Federal Capital Territory. And some very ingenious person, in quotes, decided, you know what, let's ban motorbike accident, let's ban the use of motorbikes in the Federal Capital. Why not use that child's situation as a case study to actually go after what caused the accident? How did it happen? Was it a technical failure? Was it something wrong with that kind of bicycle brand? Was it recklessness? Was it carelessness? No, somebody said, let's shut it down. You don't shut things down to solve problems. You shut it down if it springs up somewhere else. You shut that one too down. I would have took opportunity to sit in that net, even pretend to I would follow them home. But that's my wayside perspective.
Well, so I think that's the much we can take. Many thanks, Captain Umar Aliyu, retired, for your time. Now, from the east, let's come to west of Africa, where more states in southern Nigeria are putting in place laws to ban open grazing of livestock, and a move expected to curb clashes between herders and farmers linked to some of the insecurity in the country. The governor of Lagos State, the country's commercial capital, signed into law on Monday a bill passed by the State House of Assembly. Lawmakers in the oil-rich Delta State also passed a bill banning the age-old practice today. But a union of herders with members mainly from the country's northern region have criticized this stance being taken by the southern governors. Joining me for more on this from the United Kingdom is public affairs commentator Olabode Oseni. Good to see you and many thanks for your time. Now, to graze openly or not to graze openly, that's the question. There's been various positions on the issue of open grazing in Nigeria. Why do you think it has been quite contentious in recent times?
Thank you very much. I'm really worried discussing issue of open grazing 2021. I think the only part of the world that open grazing is discussed or allowed or even thought of is a place like Nigeria. It is a shame that a business like managing husbandry and supposed to be a private thing, even at that in fact they're not supposed to be seen. The only time you see animals like cows grazing is when you drive past towns. Countries in Europe do not have anything to do with open grazing. And if we want to claim that Nigeria is developing, this is nothing but a sign of retardedness. We are very retarded to do with things in Africa. And let us take with Nigeria. Why should anybody even start talking about open grazing? Open grazing, where cows will go and disrupt schools, go to offices, go to the judiciary buildings, going to places, main road, high roads. What are we talking about? Alade, what are we talking about? 2021.
You know, quickly, let me come in here. Just as governors in the region, specifically in Lagos and in Delta State and other parts of the country, have, effected that ban, Governor Nasir El-Rufai, I'm quite sure you follow in developments in northwestern state of Kaduna, has made, nonsense of the laws being passed by his colleagues in the south of Nigeria, describing it as unrealistic, even boasts of being able to implement ranching with 104 billion naira.
That's what I'm trying to say to you. Isn't this a case of we don't know what we are doing? if we know what we are doing in terms of governing or governance, I still want to ask a question. 2021, how will anybody contemplate thinking of grazing, allowing cows in the public domain? And as we've seen from experience, most of these cows have disrupted schools, places of judiciary, private homes, private properties. What is going on? Please, it's going to be very difficult for me to believe that 2021, this century, that we see talking of open grazing. You can ask me another question, Sally, but the point I'm making here is, where do you find that? Even Argentina, where you find a large number of cattle or other countries of this world, you will never find anywhere that cattle like cows are being reared in the middle of the road, high roads, causing accidents, hitting and killing, killing bicycle riders, and going to private properties, going to schools. I still don't get it.
So Otumba Hussaini, let's see if we can get something from you. You've seen, both worlds, here in Nigeria, Africa, and also in Europe, specifically in the UK where you are at the moment. Tell us what, recipe you would offer those who still think that the ban isn't the right thing. How would you suggest we here in Nigeria help the herders and those who are in the business of cattle rearing? What form of suggestion do you have for them?
Thank you very much. Let's start by defining the business of cattle rearing. I started by saying it is a private business. When you have a private business, especially something to do with cattle rearing is supposed to be in a secluded area, in an area that is restricted, only used for rearing, grazing cows and so on and so other animals, not in the public domain. And for me, for any part of the country that now chooses to want to say what other part of the country, like Southwest or southern part of the country, doing is wrong, isn't that enough argument to say they are two different kind of people? Because if it's allowed in the northern part of the country that cows can go all over the place, they can roam the street, they can go to different places and disrupt whatever people are doing, and they want the same thing to be in the south, that's for me, sorry my language, I think it's crazy. I don't understand.
Well, Otumba Olabode Hussaini, many thanks for unpacking this and also trying to proffer solutions to this problem of open grazing in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has asked the Senate to amend the Petroleum Industry Act due to an imbalance in the geopolitical representation of non-executive board members, among other issues. The President's request was contained in a letter read by the Senate President Ahmed Lawan during a plenary on Tuesday. President Buhari explained that his proposal became necessary, carefully reviewing the Nigerian midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory authorities' administrative structure and the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. He asked the lawmakers to correct the oversight in the interest of national unity. Still at the National Assembly, federal lawmakers in Nigeria have condemned the country's contributory pension scheme for serving police personnel when compared to other security agencies. They say the scheme is discriminatory as police personnel are shortchanged when they retire from the service. The lawmakers' reaction followed a peaceful protest at the parliament by retired police personnel who called the scheme a scam and an assault on their years of service to the country.
In other climes where there's a contributory pension scheme, like in Chile, for example, the police force, just like other military forces, are not part of the contributory pension scheme. I want to plead, honorable colleagues, that you support this exception, because the duties performed by the police, especially at this time of security challenges in our country, are enormous.
That's one woman that even said she has dependent. Her old mother, her old father, they're still alive, but they're not even valuing her, because you say, why do you go to the police? Why do you serve this country 35 years? You cannot even help us to eat food after your service. The reason why is contributory pension scheme.
Deputy Superintendent of Police will be getting 1.5 million naira as pension, and his counterpart in army, like a captain, will be getting 12.8 million naira in the same country. It's unacceptable.
A pension that is higher in quantum to the police than mutatis mutandis. Those privileges that is enjoyed by the military, that is charged with the responsibility of defending our own territorial integrity, should be enjoyed by the police.
Well, still in Nigeria, as the 2023 presidential elections draw near, one of the presidential hopefuls, Sam Ohuabua from the southeast, has emphasized the need to focus on tackling poverty, corruption, injustice, and insecurity bedeviling the country. The hopeful, who speaks about creating an entirely new political power bloc or ride on the wings of the existing one, says this will chart a way for a more sophisticated challenge to the status quo that Nigeria had ever seen before.
Of our country, move our country from all the negative values that we have become categorized with to become a nation, for example, that subscribes to such virtues like knowledge, industry, a nation where you're going to have patriotic people, a nation of integrity, a nation where there is justice, equity, fair play. Protect the lives of Nigerians is the minimum any government can do. Any government that is unable to do that on a consistent basis, I don't need, I'm not sure would say, if anybody say that government has failed. I think Nigerians have gotten to their head, and there is going to be a change. 2023, whether anybody likes it or accepts it, it will happen, and God has decreed it.
Renowned pharmacist and politician in Nigeria, Sam Ohuabunwas. Now, still in Nigeria, a new report by the United Nations Children's Fund says more than 300,000 children have died and over 1 million pushed out of school in the 12 years Nigeria has been waging war against insurgents in the country's northeastern region. UNICEF says the death underlined the direct and indirect attacks on children. The UN agency's representative in Nigeria, Peter Hawkins, says Nigerian children were killed in crossfires, improvised explosive devices, and used suicide bombers. He called for an end to the killings while adding that UNICEF is working with its partners to provide psychosocial and other support to conflict-affected children so they can regain their childhood and restart their lives. From the West, let's go to the center where authorities in Burundi have vowed to conduct a thorough investigation into a series of deadly terrorist grenade attacks that left at least 3 people dead and several injured in the country's economic capital. The blast in Bujumbura followed a deadly grenade explosion in a bar in the capital Gitega on Sunday, and a series of mortars launched on Burundi's international airport on Saturday night. The blast triggered panic among bus drivers, passengers, and pedestrians who frantically tried to escape the carnage. The third blast targeted a market, killing at least 2 people and injuring several others. Now, Tunisia has sent 120 troops to reinforce the United Nations Peacekeepers helicopter unit in the Central African Republic. The deployment is a part of a UN Security Council resolution in March to beef up the mission's force in the Central African Republic by around 3,000 men. It is the first time a Tunisian contingent has been deployed in the country. Now, still talking about Tunisia, President Kais Saied says he has instituted transitional governing rules and would introduce a new electoral law. This comes 8 weeks after he seized executive power labeled as a coup by his opponents. Addressing supporters in Sidi Bouzid, Saied also spoke against what he called strife and sedition days after the first protest against him. Now, let's now go to Libya from Tunisia, where lawmakers have voted to withdraw confidence in the unity government, the legislature. 89 of the 113 members of parliament present in the eastern city of Tobruk voted to withdraw confidence from the Tripoli-based administration of interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Biba, now 3 months ahead of planned elections. The move came after the legislature's speaker ratified a controversial elections law earlier this month, seen as bypassing due process and favoring eastern-based military strongman Khalifa Haftar. Now to the south now, where the legal team of South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma is seeking to remove a prosecutor in the resumed trial over a $2 billion arms deal. Zuma's lawyers are accusing lead prosecutor Billy Downer of bias. The trial over the 1990s deal, which resumed on Tuesday, has been adjourned until 0900 hours GMT on Wednesday. Zuma is accused of accepting a 500,000 rand annual bribe from Tallies and 1999 to protect the company from investigation. Staying in South Africa, a total of 28 more political parties will contest the upcoming municipal elections in the country after taking advantage of the 1-month extension granted by the Electoral Commission. The extension was granted amid objections by the DA and EFF, with registration previously scheduled to end today, September 21. In total, 32 more political parties were registered between August 4 and September 16. All but 4 have registered to contest the municipal elections, while the others have enrolled for national elections only. The elections are scheduled for November 1. United Nations agencies have announced the arrival of humanitarian aid in Palma, northern Mozambique. Now, for the first time since the massive attack launched by militants in March. Aid workers had struggled to get access to Palma because of insecurity and a lack of infrastructure. But more than 2,000 families have now received food packages in the gas-rich Cabo Delgado province. Now, still in southern Africa, a protest has taken place in the Namibian capital Windhoek against the agreement made with Germany after apologizing for genocide in the southern African country in the early 20th century. Various political parties and traditional chiefs have dismissed Germany's offer to pay $1 billion in development aid and say the deal was made without properly consulting the victims. They say the deal failed to include reparations for the affected communities. Coming up on the news, 6 deaths have been recorded in Nigeria as the country also reports 393 cases in its latest update on the coronavirus. More on this when we return. Join us again. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television, reaching you live from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. Now, as the world marks International Day of Peace, the United Nations has encouraged everyone to stand up against acts of hate, both online and offline, by spreading compassion, kindness, and hope in the face of the pandemic as the world recovers from its devastating effects. However, peace advocates also seize the opportunity to ask Africans to promote peaceful coexistence on the continent. News Central's Omolola Olalade tells us more.
According to Martin Luther King Jr., if we have peace on earth, our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, our nation, and to add to these, our religion. And this means we must develop a world perspective. Have Africans been able to harness all of these factors in ensuring peace? Are they really experiencing peace in the real sense of it?
We are experiencing uneasy peace, if I'm right. Peace like that you have in the graveyard is what we're experiencing now. Peace with uncertainty. You don't know what will happen next. You can't call that peace.
In Africa, generally, there's no peace because each and every day you hear one thing is happening or the other, or the rate of things are just going extreme, and mostly I would say our government is not even trying to help us.
What is the norms in other climes is a struggle here. For instance, basic education is a struggle in this country. A lot of people are dying of preventable diseases.
All of that which is happening today, which is stealing our peace today.
International Day of Peace is observed around the world to strengthen the ideals of peace through observing 24 hours of non-violence and ceasefire. With this year's theme being Recovering Better for an Equitable and Sustainable World, the United Nations emphasized the need to make peace with one another if Africa must recover from the devastation from the pandemic.
This year's International Day of Peace comes at a crisis point for humanity. COVID-19 has turned our world upside down. We must choose peace. That is why I call for a 24-hour ceasefire today. And by working in solidarity for a lasting, sustainable peace every day, we can tackle the issues facing us.
However, peace advocates highlight the role that religion plays in improving peace activities in the continent, with optimism that peace will be restored to the African continent in no time.
When we talk of coup and counter-coup and terrorism and counter-terrorism and the issue of conflict on the continent of Africa, when it comes to an end, are we going to have that peace that is eluding us? I would say yes, we can go out of it. Every nation go through one trial or the other before it becomes a stronger nation.
As a member of the African Union Interfaith representing West Africa on the board, on the committee, I recommend strongly that we should scale up engaging religious leaders.
This year's International Peace Day is a reminder for Africans to continue to promote peaceful coexistence amongst one another and share the ideals of peace, tranquility, and Ubuntu. Omolola Ololade, reporting for News Central.
As I say, let there be peace. Now, the National Association of Resident Doctors of Nigeria is now 62 days into their indefinite strike, despite the National Industrial Court ordering them to call off their strike, which is contemptuous to law. Now, the chairman of the National Association of Resident Doctors was on Breakfast Central today. He highlighted the significant concerns of the body and conditions that will quicken an end to the strike.
Majority of our members haven't been paid salaries ranging from 3 to upward of 20 months. And apart from that, there are other salaries that have been owed us from 2014 till date. Also, we have some bureaucratic bottlenecks, in government policies that militate against the smooth running of the healthcare in Nigeria. As we speak, we are not in contempt of the court, because even if the National Industrial Court of Nigeria gave a ruling that we should immediately resume the work from our strike, NAD is not a switchboard that you just turn off and turn on at will. Even if we didn't have planned to appeal the court case, of course, it would have taken a process for us to convene our national meeting to inform our members and say, okay, we have called up the strike, everybody should go back to their respective duty posts. So it is not going to be immediate. So, but however, within the time frame, expected.
And now for updates on the coronavirus pandemic across the country, where 6 deaths were recorded on Monday, taking the death toll since February 2020 to 2,661. In its daily update on the virus released on Tuesday, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says 393 cases were recorded on Monday, indicating an increase from the 168 cases reported on Sunday. Now, the new infections were recorded in 14 states and the Federal Capital Territory, which led the chart with 121, a far cry from the 15 cases recorded on Sunday. The NCDC notes that the country has tested over 2.9 million samples, while over 8,600 active cases remain. Nigeria's National Primary Healthcare Development Agency says it has uncovered a syndicate responsible for COVID-19 vaccine cards racketeering. Executive Officer of the agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, told journalists in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, that the agency swung into action in partnership with intelligence and security agencies after public complaints. Dr. Shuaib assured the people that the syndicate will be prosecuted to serve as a deterrent to others and to protect the image of Nigeria.
On Sunday, that was on the 12th of September, this month, I got on the social media the complaint about sales of cards in exchange for vaccination. And I had to take it up by myself. And I'm glad to inform us that we have been able to locate the team and the team members. And I speak to you now, the investigation is on. The FCT administration has not laid down this matter. We are on top of the matter, and we have not only identified the teams, we have identified the team members, and we have also located those responsible for issuing cards and scanning the QR. We in the Permanent Care Board, especially the Permanent Care Board, had to also do a stick operation. And we did not only have the culprit apprehended, but we had recordings of the transactions right from the gate to the back. So I believe that this one, we are taking to the next level.
These types of activities can bring to disrepute the integrity of the whole vaccination process in Nigeria. The DSS and the ICPC are involved. Once these individuals who are involved in this vaccination racketeering, those individuals who are also promoting or trying to access cards illegally will also be prosecuted. So it's a question of those who want to sell and those who want to buy will jointly be prosecuted. And we are taking this very, very seriously.
Still ahead, a third Russian is facing charges over his alleged involvement in the 2018 Salisbury poisonings. Details of these and more after the break. Join us again. A third Russian faces charges over his alleged involvement in the 2018 Salisbury poisonings, leaving 3 people critically ill and 1 dead. Security sources believe Denis Sergeyev was the on-the-ground commander in the Novichok attack on former double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia. Don soldiers died after the poisoning and a police officer was severely injured. Police also confirmed they believe the suspects in the case belong to a Russian military intelligence team. The current prosecution service has now authorized charges, but the suspects cannot be formally charged unless arrested. United States President Joe Biden has revealed the U.S. is not seeking a new Cold War with China. as he vows to move from post-9/11 conflicts and take a global leadership role on crisis from climate to the coronavirus pandemic. Addressing the UN General Assembly for the first time as president, Biden promised to advance democracy and alliances despite friction with Europe over France's loss of a mega contract. He noted that the United States is ready to work with any nation that steps up and pursues peaceful resolution to share challenges, even if they have intense disagreement in other areas.
Economic coercion, technical exploitation, or disinformation. But we're not seeking, say it again, we are not seeking a new Cold War or a world divided into rigid blocks. The United States is ready to work with any nation that steps up and pursues peaceful resolution to shared challenges, even if we have intense disagreements in other areas, because we'll all suffer the consequences of our failure if we do not come together to address the urgent threats like COVID-19 and climate change, or enduring threats like nuclear proliferation.
Nigeria has opened the order book for a $3 billion Eurobond offering with the aim to issue the bond next week. The West African country is aiming to issue the debt in tranches of 3 tenors, a 7-year at a yield of 6.5%, a 12-year bond at 7.75%, and a 30-year at up to 8.625%. The government arranged calls last week and on Monday with global and local investors ahead of the planned issue. The debt office has said the meetings will precede pricing for the bond to raise up to $3 billion, but no more than $6.2 billion. The notice sets September 8 for the bond settlement, which will be listed on the London and Nigerian stock exchanges. Lekon Onobanjo has the rest of the business news now.
Welcome to Business News on NC Continental Prime. I am Lekon Onobanjo. We start by telling you that South African Union, NUMSA, will stage a national strike in the country's engineering sector from October 5, after which talks reached a deadlock, according to the union on Tuesday. Industry body SAFSA, which is offering a 4.4% hike for 2021, inflation plus 0.5% in 2022, and inflation plus 1% in the third year, confirmed the deadlock and strike call with Reuters. NUMSA is the largest trade union in the engineering sector and has hit a deadlock with the 4 big employer associations in the Engineering Bargaining Council, which represents around 430,000 workers in 90,000 companies around South Africa. The Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of SA said strike action would have significant impact on the struggling economy and companies. Away from that, Kenya's 2020 exports to the East African community has increased by 12.7% to hit $1.44 billion, which is about 158.3 billion Kenyan shillings, a hike from $1.28 billion, which is about 140.4 billion Kenyan shillings in 2019, accounting for 64.3% of the country's total exports to Africa. According to data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Economic Survey for the year 2021, Uganda is the largest export destination for Kenyan goods to the EAC, this accounting for 29.3% of total exports to Africa. Export earnings from South Sudan rose from $114.6 million in 2019 to $211.1 million in 2020, and exports to Rwanda also rose by 8.8%. Jointly, exports to Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan amounted to $1.09 billion in 2020, a 20.8% growth from $909 million in 2019. Trade with Ethiopia and Sudan also grew significantly by 32.4% and 42% in 2020, bringing Kenya's export earnings from the two countries to $161 million. Let's now tell you that Tullow Oil has announced plans to invest 340 billion Kenyan shillings more in its crude oil development project in Kenya. This is as a result of additional wells that are set to be drilled alongside a larger diameter crude oil export pipeline. The company says the additional investment will be used to develop its upstream activities as well as the pipeline between Turkana and Lamu. The firm further says the revised development concept allows greater flexibility in adding oil fields into production without significant modifications to the project's infrastructure. Tullow has also announced that the 825-kilometer pipeline that will transport the crude oil from Turkana to the port of Lamu will be heated and buried to avoid any disruption in the long term. Meanwhile, despite the impact of global pandemic on economies, the investment of China in Africa has risen to $2.96 billion in the year 2020. This is contained in a statement titled, China-Africa Economic Relations Continue to Thrive During the Pandemic by China's Consul General in Lagos, Chu Maoming. Maoming adds that the achievements is one of the sources of hope of a speedy economic recovery against the pandemic. He further said that to help Africa's economic recovery, the Chinese government has signed debt servicing and service suspension agreements with and has reduced or waived the interest-free loans for multiple African countries, becoming the biggest player in terms of relieving African debt among the group of 20 nations. Nigeria Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has started the implementation of 100% custody requirement in the collective investment scheme sector. The Director General of SEC, Lamido Yuguda, said this in Abuja while explaining that the custody requirement covers all funds and portfolios being managed by registered fund portfolio managers. He said all clients' assets managed under discretionary and non-discretionary mandates are to be held under independent custodial agreement and banks. This is in addition to CIS mutual funds authorized for public offering. Yuguda adds it is a natural operational requirement of CIS, and SEC is having new enforcement and insistence on the compliance that has been in the books but have not been implemented before now. NC Continental Prime continues shortly. I am Lekon Onabanjo.